The BL campus that we see today has changed dramatically since the fall of 1960 when the school first arrived here on Lake Avenue. From a one-building school to a magnificent 75-acre campus.
Who would have thought, umpteen years ago that here we are. When we did move in, we told some of our neighbors, watch out, because we're looking, we're moving.
So where are we on campus right now? Just describe where we are.
We're probably right in the middle of the campus. We have 70 acres with a new addition for boarding. We're half city and half county, so we're right in the middle of it. And it makes it difficult when you try to get a permit to build something or do, you got to get city's okay and the county's okay.
So this was really the heart of the campus in 1960, right?
In 1960, this is the campus. In 1959-60, the school was going out of business. We were downtown, Urban Renewal came in and they said, we're tearing Boys Latin down. We had three people that ran the school. Mr. Hahn was the headmaster, Mr. Morris was an English professor, and Okie O'Connor was the athletic director. And Okie wanted to keep it downtown. The other two gentlemen just wanted to take their money and run. They were older than Okie, and they were retiring and they were finished. We looked at the Greek Orthodox Church, and we were really thinking very seriously of moving in there. And that would have been a rental, and it would have stayed a profit-making organization. Okie wanted to stay downtown. A lot of alums didn't. Jack Williams came alongside, and he found this place. Jack came along and said, we don't want to just put a Band-Aid on this. We want to fix this. So we're going to look around, and then they found this place. We were lucky because most of the parents were taking their children out and trying to look at St. Paul's, Loyola, or wherever, Gilman, wherever the schools were, because we were pretty much closed. It didn't look real good, and Jack Williams was the spearhead. We had our first capital campaign was held to buy this building, which was $250,000, and Jack Dunn was the chairman of the campaign, who was an alumnus of Boys Latin. And these guys got together and they made it happen. It was a house. It was a house with, I believe we had 13 acres, no fields, no gymnasiums, no anything.
My first hours on this campus were spent cleaning up rooms, scraping wallpaper, painting, and doing whatever it took to get what had been a very an elegant mansion at one point in time, converting that into classrooms and a place where Boys Latin could start again.
That housed K through 12, so you were pretty packed in there, but we only had 123 students, K through 12. So we made the most of it. There's some pictures of boys in a classroom, and you can see where there used to be pictures hanging on the wall, and they moved them because the paint was still, and we didn't have time to paint the rooms. We bought it late in August and we moved in September. It was a house. We moved into a house. The kitchen was an overlarge kitchen on the first floor, and that's where the boys ate. Assemblies were held in the hallway. The teachers would be lined up on the sides. All the students would be lined up in the middle, chairs, and we'd have your main assembly. And we did that for 4 or 5 years. The older boys they had lunch with the younger boys, and the younger boys became friends of the older boys, and they'd go to the lacrosse games and football games and basketball games to see them play. They knew one another. It was a close knit. It was starting to form the philosophy that Boys Latin, Lakers are pretty important and they stick together.
The relationship that we had wasn't just with one class, it was actually with the whole school. That was true on Brevard Street because it was very small then. And when we moved out to Lake Avenue, we maintained that small size. We knew each other and we depended on each other, and we actually knew that we were better together than we were not together.
Every once in a while people say we ought to tear it down and do something, bring something. I said, no, not quite yet. That's got too many memories. It's a great building. we had a fire there. It was after a bull roast. We had a bull roast on that Saturday, and Sunday morning I got a phone call and they said, Boys Latin's on fire. So I came over here and there was flames just going out of the top. And you thought, Billy Gilroy was an alumnus at the time, and he came by, and I remember him saying, I feel like I've just lost my best friend. But after the fire on a Sunday, Monday, school was operating. A friend of Mr. Williams gave us 5 trailers. We put them right out here. The kids were in trailers, and we were working over in the Cochran property, raising money, telling everybody we're still in business. They were all wishing we weren't, but that's like a little bitter with the sweet. And then I think in the 65 era, we put this annex on, and that became, we were getting larger and we needed a middle school. So that was our middle school. And the top half, you see, we didn't have a big library. We didn't have a big room a conference room where everybody could meet. So that was our main library and main place for all the students to meet. We even had our first wrestling match against Friends School. We took the mats from down the bottom, folded them up, brought them up here, and put them in the library, and had our first wrestling match with Friends School. I forget how I was so excited about just getting the mats up there. I forgot who won. But that was another great building, and that served a great purpose. As I said before, everything that we built, there was a great need for. And that was our middle school for a while. This field is named after Coach Mace LeBrun. Mace was a gym coach at Boys Latin downtown, and all the kids loved Mace. He was just one of those guys that everybody really looked up to. So when we moved out here, Mace became the athletic director, and then he was the head lacrosse coach with Dick Moore and Henry LeBrun, his nephew. And then after they stopped, I became Mace's assistant, and we had a great time together. So when Mace passed away, we wanted to name this field LeBrun Coaches Field, and you have all the sports that were played on this field, and the names of the coaches that were the coaches at that time, and it's the A. Mason LeBrun Fields in honor of all the head coaches.
What do you think about as you look over this beautiful field?
This was a great addition to the school. Up until we put the seed on, it was a seeded field, so the same as the bottom. We didn't have the AstroTurf on them at the time. So if you played up here in one game and it was raining, the field was pretty much destroyed for the rest of the season. So we eventually put in the turf field. And it's been in maybe 15 years, and it's been a great addition to the school. You come out, one of the best things, you come out here, it's lacrosse season, and it's snowing out there, and you got about 3 inches of snow. We plow this off, and you got snow banks all over the place, and then you see these kids coming out, and they're playing lacrosse. It was a great addition. For a small school like us, and the property that we have, we'd be lost right now if we didn't have turf fields.
Well, athletics are such a big part of Boys.
Oh, it is. It is. It gets a lot of these boys into college, and it gets them some financial aid where they need it. So you look at most of the pictures in the alumni house of different awards that were given. They're all guys that lived the full life of the school. They either played sports, or they were in the band, or they didn't leave here at 3 o'clock. They left here at 6. They put a full day in, and I think that means a lot, So, but this was a great addition, and we were happy to name it the LeBrun Field.
It's a special place, right?
Oh, I think it is. I think one of the things that stand out with Boys Latin is its size. You'll hear that from just about everybody around. They'll say, "Well, what's so special about Boys Latin?" I think it's the size. You're not a number here. You're a name, and the boys, they know you in the classroom. They know you on the fields. And I don't think we want to lose that. And it sounds silly. A few years back when Meb Turner was headmaster, we took the student body to 660 students. And it just put us over that hump. We were very comfortable with the 620, 630. But we just sort of lost a little bit of that down-home cooking. You know, it was just, it was good. When we play, and I think the board sits down and they talk about it often, and then it comes to the fact that we'd like to keep it around 600, between, let's say 620 and 630. But 660, just a little large. Sounds funny, but that just made that one boy get lost in the crowd, and we don't want to lose any of them. When we moved in, this was just an open field. There was a dairy cow thing to the right, unusable. So we needed to do a field. We cleaned it up the best we could, but it was filled with rocks and bottles and stuff. And kids that would get detentions, we'd bring them down with a wheelbarrow or whatever, and they'd go through and they'd just pick up all the rocks and stuff. And we'd do that before games. I remember we were playing Southern in a lacrosse game, and Mace LeBron was our head coach. I remember the coach from Southern yelled over to Mace. He said, "Mace, what do you use for grass seed around here? Rocks and stones?" And we made the most of it. We played some great games here with Swanwick on a Saturday, just pouring down rain. Gilman a couple of times pouring down rain. And it was a mud fest. And it was also getting the drainage from the artesian well up there was coming down here. So it really, you know, you really tore the field up. And we finally bit the bullet and said, you know, we're going to put an AstroTurf field in. And we did. And it's been a lifesaver. The same thing here goes for what's up there on a snowy day. We just plow it and the kids are coming out and they're out playing. But this is a special field. We were looking around to fix this field up, and we went to Western Maryland and took a good look at their field and decided that we'd like to put one in here, an AstroTurf field. And Robbie Smith was driving us around and looking at these different fields around, and he came up and he said, "This is what we'd like to do here." And he said, I'd like to name it, and I'd like to name the field in honor of my older brother, Duncan. So that's how it's the Duncan Smith Field. And Federico, his family gave the money for the stadium. So it's the stadium, the Federico Stadium and the Duncan Smith Field. We'll have homecoming, and you'll have a little over 2,000 people here watching the game. They're all over the hills. We seat 700 people, and they have backs to them, so you're comfortable for the whole game. It's a great place to watch a game, and as you can see, we're right on the field. If you're sitting in those stands, you're right on top of the field. So it's a great place to watch a game.
How do you make all of that happen?
You get pictures of all of them. No, you know, it's people give to people. It's friendship. You want to make sure, you know, and you've got to be wise enough to know that I'm not the one to ask. You want the right person to go see it. So, you know, with Robbie, at that point in time, the three of us were probably the right people to do it. But there are other buildings here that have names, and you can't get hurt feelings if somebody comes and says, "Hey, Jennifer, I want to take you, and I want to take Steve. I want you two to ask this guy for some money or a family for some money," and you say, "I'm the wrong one. I'm the wrong one. So-and-so ought to go. They're closer, they know." So people give to people, and our job is to make sure we send the right people to go talk to them about the money.
Not everybody.
Pretty mercenary, isn't it?
I was going to say not everybody could do this. Do what you do.
Oh, listen, I have a very hard time saying, "I'd like you to think about $1 million. I have a hard time coming out with that, 50,000, $1 million. But the main thing is sending the right person.
But you can ask.
I don't have a problem asking. You know why? I'm just selling a great product. You know, I'm not a used car salesman. I'm selling education for young boys. You take a look at all these kids here. Oh, come on, it's an easy sell. You know, kids walking across that bridge, they all speak, they're all nice, they're all well-mannered. That's an easy ticket to sell, it really is. This is the Hall of Fame wall. I think Matt Kennedy had a lot to do with this, pushed it for a long time to recognize gentlemen that most of them are three-letter athletes. First team All-Maryland, that was the main criteria, I think, right? And we go way back. In the first year, we put a bunch of people in. 2006, we go back to class of 1913. And every other year we have it, and we've got it right up to 2020, so we're working on another one. But they really come back and want to see this, you know, and it's great. You got the old timers, all these guys are old, and the younger ones, and they all come back and say, hey, I want to get my picture taken. Hey, I want to get my picture taken next to my name and my child and all this stuff. And it doesn't hurt fundraising. You know, they like to be a part of it.
And tell me about the 2006 plaque.
Yeah, we said we have so many. We're going to have a large party in the alumni in the gymnasium, and all these people went in during a homecoming weekend, and it was really pretty special. But good time.
And the third name from the bottom on that third plaque.
I don't know how he got it. I don't know. Oh, I know. I was in charge of it that year. No, we had some great ball players there. I mean, you take a look at, and you start with Bobby Hahn, and you got Donnie Hahn up there, Joe Solers. All these guys were local, went to local colleges. Buzzy Williams, Bill Jarrett. Mickey Webster, great midfielder attackman at Hopkins. And you can go on about everyone here. You know, they all were standout athletes. All but one, and it really fits. But when you drive down here at night, your lights are on, and you may be having a young boy that's thinking about coming to Boys Latin, and he's an athlete, and he wants to play, and he drives down here, he sees the big plaque up there, Boys Latin School Athlete, sees this, you know, it all helps. It all helps. You know, I've had people say, I want to be on that. It's special for the family, especially for the kids to see, that's my dad, that's my uncle. You know, very nice, good time. Great addition. Some schools don't want to do it, and I don't know why. I think they say they don't want to separate athletes from scholars and all that. Then do one for scholars. You know, put up a wall for all your valedictorians, which would be great. You know, I'd love to have that. But anytime you have a chance like this to expose and get their names out to people and see it and be proud of it, do it. So I'd love to put an academic one on that side. I would not make that one. Definitely wouldn't make that one.
So the campus has changed so much.
A little bit.
This used to be a barn?
This was, when we moved here, this was here. And it was a barn. Down below, they actually had some cattle, and they had some sheep, and they had chickens. We've got a couple of old pictures of it. Great building, but when we moved here, it was still the barn. The whole thing was a barn. But we divided that first part where you see campus store. We turned that into a headmaster's house. And Bill Cooper, who was our first headmaster, came up here, and he moved in there with his wife and two sons and maybe a daughter. I'm not sure about the daughter, but with two sons in there, and he lived there for 2 years. When he left, the second floor became Mace LeBrun's athletic director's office, and the bottom floor was used for classrooms. And the bottom floor where the animals all were, that became our cafeteria. And so you want to see something unappealing, you try to put a bunch of kids in there and have lunch. It was pretty rough, but they didn't seem to mind it. The food was good, the kids liked it. And then after lunch, a lot of them would go up to the second floor where Mace's office was. He had a great rapport with these kids. He listened to them, and they spent a lot of time up there. And then I think it was 5th and 6th grades where Ann Whitman's bookstore is. On the other side, right in the middle, we used that right away as a weight room for wrestling. We only had one wrestler at the time, I think. Could have been John Ewing, and I remember seeing him work out there, but that was their workout room. And then on the far side, the top floor was the dressing room for 3rd and 4th, 5th and 6th grade athletic. And then the basement, or the bottom floor, that was an assembly hall where we had lower school assemblies. But that building, you know, they've wanted to tear that down 100 times, and I got to tell you, we've got more use out of that building than anything around. We're still using it like crazy. We've got borders on the second floor. We got stuff going on the bottom. We've got the Ann Whitman. I think she'll cry if we move her from there. And downstairs is where all the maintenance people are. So it's well built.
So tell us about the gym.
When we first moved here, we didn't have a gym, and we practiced at Mount Washington Country School and over at Pikesville Armory. And the kids didn't mind it. It was a pretty good jaunt for them, and that's where their home games were, so they enjoyed it. So all of a sudden, we talked to Mr. Ehrhardt, who was chairman of the board, and he wrote us a nice check to put this building up. And he wanted to name it after his wife, Margaret Allman Ehrhardt Gymnasium. So we did. And a few years later, Robbie Smith came in and wanted to name it after Snuffy Gelson, his coach. So we named it, we kept the gym name, but we made it the Gelson Center. It's a great gym, and our bull roast, oyster roast, homecomings, all kinds of stuff there. Typical gym, weight room, you know, you go in there and socks all over the place, you get me out of here. But it's a good gym. Needs a little facelifting, and that's what we're going to work on right now, I think, this next campaign.
Tell me about why these courts are significant in your history at Boys Latin.
It just added another sport to the team, you know. Instead of when downtown we had football, basketball, and lacrosse, that was it. You move out here, you have kids that don't like football, basketball, lacrosse, but maybe they like golf, maybe they like tennis, maybe they like, you know, whatever. And so we said, hey, you know, we want to service every kid here. We want to have an opportunity, give them an opportunity to participate in something where they can feel good about themselves and achieve success. Got a bunch of tennis players out here that, you know, could care less about lacrosse, which is great. This was just dirt, the bottom of a hill, and we used to call it Siberia. It was just awful looking, and that's where I used to coach my 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and 6th grade lacrosse teams out here. And it was an awful, it was all dirt, half this size, because when we put this up, we cut into a hill.
I want to go back for a minute and talk about the wall, the athletic wall of fame down there. Mm-hmm. How many of the names on that wall did you coach?
Oh, wow. Golly day. I coached a lot. I was assistant coach for a while. I was head coach for a long time. That first group that went in, that first plaque of 30-some, they were all older than I, believe it or not. So I'd say maybe half of them I may have coached. Maybe not quite half. But, you know, knew them all. Even the old timers. The old timers were great. I mean, I was a lucky guy that they sort of brought me in alongside, and you know, I used to go hunting with them and stuff like that. So we had great, just, you know, as I said before, great relationships.
And has that paid off in your fundraising?
Oh yeah. We'll go back and see those names. Oh yeah.
So once again, it's all about those relationships.
It really is. The fundraising, the getting in, you know, I get calls all the time saying, hey, my son's applying to Boys Latin, can you help me out a little bit? It's relationships. Everybody does it, you know. It's a business.
Well, we're approaching a really special place on campus.
Yeah. One of the great things, I was having dinner with Carolyn Smith, who had been very generous over the years to Boys Latin. We were having dinner at the Valley Inn one night, and she said, what's the next thing? What's the next thing you want at Boys Latin? And the boys used to criticize me and say, Duncan and David and Fred used to go and say, and Robbie used to say, leave my mother alone. Will you stop asking her for money? I said, okay. I'd never asked her for money. Never asked her for money. And we're sitting there having dinner, and here she comes up. What's the next thing you want at Boys Latin? I didn't ask for it, but I said, I'd like to give back to the alums. The alums got us to where we are today. You know, they're the heart and soul of this school. I said, I'd like to do an alumni house. And I think they thought right away, alumni house. I'm not real sure if we want Dyson in an alumni house. You know, that could be some trouble. And she said, let's do it. She approved it, wanted to go, and then we had to come back, and we wanted to run it by Henry Hopkins, who was the chairman of the board at the time, Mercer Neal, who was the headmaster, and Duncan. And so we sit down and say, this is what your mother wants to do, and this is where we're going, this is how we're going to go about it, and everything. And they didn't want it. I think what they thought is Dyson's going to have a playground over here, and it's going to be, you know, everybody's going to have parties in here all night. You raise a lot of money having parties, which we do very well. I talked to Mercer Neal, the headmaster, and did make this quote. I said, you think that's the last nickel she's going to give? Because she's not going to give any more if you don't. She wants this, and she wants to name it for her husband. And you're saying, no, you better find a place for it and put it up. And sure enough, we found this little spot up here, and we measured, said we could do it. We called her that afternoon and said, let's get her going. And she called Henry and Duncan and said, we're going to make this thing work. So we went out and got some drawings and some prices, and this first one came in, and she said, I don't like that. She would come in here just about every day during, as we're putting the building up. She'd come in and look at it and make some decisions for us. The hand would hit the table, and you knew, well, she didn't like that. So, but she decorated everything. And if you want to have a good time, sit down with Carolyn Smith and Rita Sinclair one afternoon and talk about furniture. I mean, they had some pretty good battles, but Carolyn won out, and as you can see, everything in there is over 20 years old now, and it's like it was brand new. So we did the best, and both of them were really good, Rita Sinclair and Carolyn Smith. We've had everything in the world. We've had receptions in here. To the left is all offices. That's alumni and development office. The middle is a big party room, and we have a board of trustees room to the right, and we've never had a board of trustees room until we put this building up 20 years ago. We meet in the library. So it really has, it's been a great asset. And sure enough, we're saying now, should have made it a little bit bigger. But we've had wedding receptions here, large parties. We can have about 250, 300 people. And they had a function a few years back, and they had over 500 people, but they put a huge tent out here. And it just flows. It's a great function, great place to have.
And when was this building built?
20 years ago, almost 20 years ago to the day. We were on this side, and in 70 and 74, we moved across the road. We couldn't get a bridge. The teachers would stand out on Lake Avenue with a sign, and we'd have these crossings, maybe as many as 1,200 crossings a day, back and forth, and we just couldn't get a bridge.
When we had to go from the lower school to the upper school campus, I would have 5 faculty members with stop signs. I would go out and stand in the middle of Lake Avenue on the yellow double line with my whistle, with my stop signs, telling traffic, stop, asking them to stop, please stop. And then we would get the boys going across the street.
Half of it's in the city, half's in the county, and we just couldn't get it passed. And we had guys like Matt DeVito, who's the president of Rask Company. He was pushing for it, and Barton Mitchell was pitching for it, East Stewart Mitchell. So we finally went downtown to City Hall, and we took a bunch of our little kids down there. They got about 7 young students in the lower school to go downtown into this big, I'm trying to think, City Hall, I guess, big room. And you have all the judges up front, and we're sitting in the back, and there's a microphone right in the middle there. And this little boy went up, he just went up, grabbed the microphone, and he said, "This is why we need a bridge at Boys Latin School, to save these boys' lives." The kid was terrific.
He was so eloquent, pronunciation, and he said, "We need this bridge for our safety. Our lives are at stake." He did it perfectly.
Sold it. The kids. We're all going to take credit. Well, we got the bridge. The kids got the bridge. And we walked out of there, and I can't think of the lady's name. That was a good friend of Barton Mitchell's at the time, but she was a politician, and she looked up at Bart. She said, "Don't worry about it. It's a done deal. You got it." That's what made it happen. And then we got to talk to Mrs. Smith about building the bridge, and she sat down. At first, she didn't want any part of it. And then we said, "Well, we'd like to put, your husband's name on it." And she said, "Fine, I'll do that." And sure enough, the bridge went up.
It is in memory of my late husband, and for you students, I have dedicated this bridge in the memory of Julian Sinclair Smith. I hope you all take advantage of and benefit by and appreciate your years at Boys Latin School. Good luck.
Thank you.
Had a great dedication in December. A little bitter out, plenty cold, and good turnout. And we had the whole lower school in hard hats, and they all came across the bridge with Mrs. Smith.
It was a bridge not just for the school, but it's a bridge for the community, everyone that drives under there.
everybody that uses Lake Avenue, it's a lot safer right now. And when you look at those little boys out there in their hard hats today, it had to give you a little chill to, to say that, the safety is the most important thing, and they're a lot safer now for having the bridge.
It's hard to imagine this campus without the bridge.
Oh, it is. And the bridge, I think, really has sort of brought the school back together again. The lower school, they come across here, they have athletics over here, they even have some classes over here. But that's really turned out to be, that's brought us back. And that's something I think was so important when we moved out here in '60. You had the K through 12, and it was pretty special.
It's sort of a sign of the community of Boys
It brought us all together, really did. It really, that was a great gift from the Smith family, and really has been special to the school.
One of the many things that you helped to make happen.
But I'll tell you, we had a very nice relationship with Carolyn Smith. I mean, she was a wonderful young lady, and we had some great times together. And she was happy to do the bridge. And that bridge, I guarantee you, has saved a lot of lives.
What do you think about as you walk through campus? I mean, every day you at least make the walk into your office. What do you think about as you walk through this amazing campus?
Well, being a fundraiser, I think about how we're going to build the next building. No, I just think of all the good I think our teachers do for the students here, and we have our problems just like any other school, but I think our teachers really sit down and listen and talk with the boys, and I think that's special. And every once in a while, I'll come over on a Sunday and I'll walk around and I'll look at the Llewellyn. Remember when we bought that, and just think of all the people that we were in contact with, the people that were chairman of different campaigns that allowed these buildings to all be built. So, yeah, a lot of good thoughts, but mostly of the students. Meaningful relationships. So it's about the relationships, everything.